Imagine this ordinary moment. It is early morning. Your alarm stops ringing. Before your thoughts fully organize themselves, your hand reaches for your phone. You are not looking for entertainment. You are not even fully awake. You just want to check something quickly. A notification appears from your banking app. Your balance is not shocking. Nothing dramatic happened overnight. No crisis, no sudden loss. And yet, something subtle happens inside your body. A small tightening in your chest. A quiet hesitation before opening the app. A brief internal calculation you do not consciously notice. Should I check now or later? Most people recognize this feeling, but few stop to analyze it. Because the emotion is not really about money. It is about psychological exposure. Money forces confrontation with reality, and the human brain naturally avoids information that might create discomfort. Now imagine another person in the same city. They earn nearly the same income. They face similar expenses. Their lifestyle looks almost identical from the outside. But when they open their banking app, their emotional reaction is different. Neutral. Calm. Not wealthy, not careless, just emotionally steady. The difference between these two people is not intelligence. It is not discipline. And surprisingly, it is not even financial knowledge. The difference began months or even years earlier, through something so small it barely felt important at the time. Daily interaction with money. Behavioral psychology shows that long-term outcomes rarely change because of one dramatic decision. Humans like to imagine transformation as a single powerful moment. A promotion, a big investment, a strict budget starting Monday, a complete lifestyle reset. But real behavioral change almost never happens this way. Large decisions activate resistance. Small repeated behaviors reshape identity. Financial stability, in most cases, grows quietly through actions so small, the brain stops labeling them as effort. Today, we are not discussing extreme saving strategies or complicated investment systems. We are exploring something far more influential: how daily psychological exposure reshapes financial behavior without forcing discipline. Because most financial struggles are not mathematical problems. They are attention problems. And attention, when repeated consistently, changes perception. Perception changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. But to understand why daily systems work, we must first understand a hidden psychological pattern that influences nearly every financial decision humans make. If you enjoy calm, psychology-based explanations about money and human behavior, consider liking the video and subscribing to PS Guys. It helps this type of thoughtful educational content reach people who want understanding instead of quick financial hype. Most people believe financial success depends on knowledge. Learn enough about money and behavior will improve. But behavioral finance research repeatedly shows something unexpected. People often know what they should do. They simply do not do it consistently. This creates a fascinating psychological question. Why do intelligent people make predictable financial mistakes? The answer begins with how the human brain experiences time. The brain was not designed for modern money. For most of human history, survival depended on immediate decisions. Food available now mattered more than food promised later. Safety today mattered more than potential safety months from now. The brain evolved to prioritize immediacy. This evolutionary wiring still shapes modern financial behavior. Psychologists call this present bias. Present bias means the emotional brain assigns greater importance to rewards or discomfort occurring now, compared to outcomes happening in the future. Saving money feels like loss today. Spending money feels like relief today. Even when logic clearly supports saving, emotional systems interpret the experience differently. You are not fighting mathematics. You are negotiating with ancient survival wiring. This explains why motivation often fails. Motivation relies on future imagination. Emotion responds to present experience. And the present almost always wins. The emotional weight of large goals. Consider a large financial goal, saving $10,000. Objectively, this is simply a numerical target. Psychologically, however, the brain interprets it as overwhelming. Large future goals activate cognitive stress because they feel abstract and distant. The brain cannot emotionally simulate gradual progress easily. Instead, it perceives the entire effort at once. This produces avoidance, not laziness, not irresponsibility. Avoidance is a protective response against perceived psychological overload. Now, something interesting happens when the same goal is reframed into daily behavior. Instead of asking, "How will I save $10,000?" the question becomes, "What small action happens today?" The emotional meaning changes completely. This process is known as temporal reframing. The objective remains identical, but emotional resistance decreases dramatically because the brain can manage today. Today feels controllable, and controllability reduces stress. Another powerful mechanism explains why daily awareness works. It is called cognitive salience. Human attention determines perceived importance. Whatever appears frequently in awareness becomes mentally prioritized. If finances are rarely observed, they remain abstract. Abstract problems feel larger and more threatening. But when financial information becomes part of daily life, familiarity develops. Familiarity reduces emotional intensity, and reduced emotional intensity improves decision quality. This is why simply observing financial numbers daily, without analysis, can begin changing behavior. Observation removes avoidance, and avoidance is one of the strongest predictors of long-term financial stress. The brain stops interpreting money as danger. It begins interpreting money as information, and information feels manageable. Many people attempt financial change through monthly planning, budgets, reviews, resolutions. The intention is logical, but psychologically, monthly systems create delayed feedback. Humans learn best when behavior and consequence remain closely connected in time. If feedback arrives weeks later, the brain struggles to connect cause and effect. Daily systems solve this problem. They shorten the psychological distance between action and awareness. Small corrections happen early, before mistakes accumulate emotionally or financially. And this is where a deeper transformation begins. Because repeated daily exposure does something unexpected. It changes emotional identity around money. But before we explore identity, we must go deeper into the psychological forces quietly influencing everyday financial decisions. That is where most people misunderstand their own behavior and where real change begins. To understand why daily financial behavior matters so deeply, we must look at a truth many people find uncomfortable. Most financial decisions are not made consciously. They feel conscious, but psychologically, they are often automatic reactions shaped by emotion, environment, and mental shortcuts. Behavioral economists call these shortcuts cognitive biases, and these biases do not affect only careless people. They affect everyone, including intelligent, educated, and financially aware individuals. Humans like to believe they make logical financial decisions, but neuroscience shows that emotional processing activates before rational analysis. The brain feels first, then explains. This means many financial choices are emotionally decided and logically justified afterward. For example, a person buys an expensive device and later explains it as productivity improvement. Another upgrades their lifestyle and calls it deserved reward. A third avoids checking debt and tells themselves they are waiting for the right time. These explanations feel rational, but often they are emotional regulation strategies. Money becomes a tool for managing feelings, relief, comfort, identity reassurance, temporary control. The purchase is not solving a financial problem. It is solving an emotional state. One of the most powerful behavioral finance concepts is loss aversion. Psychological research shows humans experience losses roughly twice as strongly as equivalent gains. Losing $100 feels significantly worse than gaining $100 feels good. Now consider saving money. From a rational perspective, saving increases future security. But emotionally, saving feels like giving something up today. The brain interprets saving as a small loss in present freedom. This is why saving large amounts suddenly feels uncomfortable. It triggers emotional resistance. Daily saving works differently. A small automated transfer is often too small to activate strong loss perception. The brain barely registers it as sacrifice. Over time, consistency accumulates results without triggering defensive emotional reactions. This is not about discipline. It is about working with psychological design instead of against it. Another hidden force shaping money decisions is decision fatigue. Every day, humans make thousands of small choices. What to eat, what to wear, how to respond to messages, what to prioritize. Each decision consumes mental energy. By evening, cognitive resources decrease. When mental energy drops, the brain shifts toward easier decisions, and easy decisions often mean immediate rewards. Impulse purchases frequently occur not because of desire, but because of exhaustion. The brain chooses relief over evaluation. This explains why many spending decisions happen late at night or during stressful periods. Daily systems reduce decision fatigue. Automation removes repeated negotiation. Pre-decided actions conserve mental energy. Instead of asking repeatedly, "Should I save today?" the decision has already been made. And fewer decisions create more consistency. Financial avoidance follows a predictable psychological cycle. Step 1. Discomfort appears. Maybe spending increased. Maybe savings decreased. Step 2. Avoidance begins. The person delays checking accounts. Step 3. Uncertainty grows. Without information, imagination fills the gap. The brain often imagines outcomes worse than reality. Step 4. Anxiety increases. Step 5. Avoidance strengthens. This loop creates emotional distance from financial reality. Ironically, avoidance increases stress more than the financial situation itself. Daily awareness interrupts this cycle. Frequent exposure normalizes information. Numbers lose emotional charge. And when emotion decreases, clarity increases. Modern financial behavior is also shaped by environment. Digital platforms are designed to reduce friction between desire and purchase. One-click ordering, saved payment details, personalized recommendations. These systems remove psychological pauses that once protected decision-making. Historically, buying required effort, traveling to a store, handling physical money, waiting. Those delays allowed emotional intensity to fade. Now decisions happen instantly. The brain reacts before reflection occurs. Daily spending reflection reintroduces awareness, not guilt, not restriction, just observation. Asking one simple question at the end of the day: was this intentional or reactive? This question activates metacognition. Metacognition means thinking about thinking. And when people observe patterns without judgment, behavior begins adjusting naturally. Awareness creates self-correction. Many people believe financial difficulty reflects lack of intelligence. Behavioral science strongly disagrees. In fact, higher intelligence can sometimes increase financial complexity. Smart individuals often create sophisticated justifications for emotional decisions. They rationalize rather than recognize patterns. This is called motivated reasoning. The brain protects self-image by interpreting information in ways that preserve identity. If someone sees themselves as responsible, they reinterpret impulsive spending as necessary. If someone believes they are unlucky financially, they interpret neutral events as confirmation. Daily systems weaken motivated reasoning because repeated small observations provide consistent feedback. Reality becomes harder to reinterpret emotionally. Patterns become visible. And visibility reduces self-deception gently, without confrontation. If content like this helps you understand how psychology shapes real-world decisions, subscribing supports educational videos focused on behavioral insight rather than unrealistic financial promises. When daily awareness, small automation, and reflection combine, something subtle begins happening. Financial behavior becomes less emotional. Decisions require less effort. Money stops feeling unpredictable. This change is rarely dramatic. There is no sudden moment where everything feels solved. Instead, emotional volatility decreases slowly. Stress reduces gradually. Confidence grows quietly. And eventually, financial behavior stops feeling like a task. It becomes a normal part of identity. But identity itself is the next and most important piece of the puzzle. Because long-term financial behavior is not sustained by rules. It is sustained by who a person believes they are. And that belief often began long before adulthood. At some point, financial behavior stops being about numbers entirely. It becomes personal. Not logically personal, psychologically personal. Because money is never just currency. It is meaning. It represents safety, freedom, competence, status, belonging, and sometimes even love. And long before adults make their first salary, their brain has already started forming emotional beliefs about money. Children do not learn about money through formal education. They learn by observation. They watch how adults react when bills arrive. They notice whether money conversations create tension or calm. They absorb emotional tone long before understanding financial concepts. Psychologists refer to these unconscious beliefs as money scripts. Money scripts are internal rules formed early in life that quietly guide adult behavior. A child who repeatedly hears stress around finances may internalize, "Money is dangerous. Money causes conflict. There is never enough." Another child who observes spending used as reward may learn, "Buying equals happiness. Success must be visible. Spending earns approval." These beliefs rarely remain conscious, but they influence decisions decades later. An adult may believe they are making independent choices while unknowingly repeating emotional patterns learned in childhood. This explains why financial habits often feel automatic. They are not simply habits, they are identity expressions. One of the strongest psychological connections people form is between money and self-worth. Income becomes interpreted as a measurement of value. Higher income feels like validation. Lower income feels like personal failure. But this connection creates emotional instability. Because income fluctuates, markets change, opportunities shift. When identity depends on financial outcomes, emotional well-being becomes tied to variables outside personal control. This leads to anxiety-driven decisions. People may overspend to maintain identity, or avoid opportunities that risk temporary failure, or compare constantly, searching for reassurance. Financial stress often comes not from lack of money, but from perceived inadequacy. The brain asks silently, "What does my financial situation say about me?" Daily awareness helps weaken this link. When money becomes information rather than judgment, identity separates from outcome, and separation creates psychological freedom. Humans evolved in small communities where social standing influenced survival. Being accepted mattered deeply. Modern environments still activate this instinct, but today, status is often expressed through consumption. Homes, devices, experiences, lifestyle signals. The brain interprets these signals socially, not financially. A purchase may look irrational economically, but logical socially, because the goal is belonging. Social comparison operates automatically. People rarely compare upward intentionally. It happens through exposure. Scrolling through curated lives online creates distorted perception of normality. Luxury becomes baseline. Moderation begins to feel like deprivation. This phenomenon is known as relative deprivation. People feel poor not because they lack resources, but because comparison changes perception. Daily reflection interrupts this pattern. When spending is reviewed intentionally, purchases reconnect with personal values rather than external signals. The question shifts from, "What do others expect?" to, "What actually improves my life?" Many spending decisions are emotional protection strategies. Buying certain things can reduce fear of exclusion. Wearing particular brands may signal belonging. Participating in expensive social activities may prevent perceived rejection. The brain prioritizes social safety, and social safety sometimes overrides financial logic. This does not mean people are irrational. It means human needs are layered. Financial decisions often solve emotional problems first. Understanding this removes shame, because behavior becomes understandable. And what becomes understandable becomes changeable. Money disagreements in relationships rarely concern numbers alone. Partners may argue about spending, saving, or risk tolerance. But beneath the argument are emotional needs. One partner may associate saving with safety. The other may associate spending with enjoyment or freedom. Neither perspective is wrong. They are shaped by different psychological histories. Conflict arises when behavior is interpreted morally rather than psychologically. Careless, controlling, irresponsible. These labels increase defensiveness. But when couples understand money scripts, conversations change. Instead of debating numbers, they explore meaning. And understanding reduces conflict. Financial harmony often begins with emotional translation, not financial optimization. If these psychological insights help you see everyday behavior more clearly, subscribing to PS Guys is like investing in better thinking. The goal here is not quick advice, but deeper understanding that stays with you long after the video ends. Here is where daily habits become powerful. Identity is not formed through intention. It is formed through repetition. A person who checks finances daily begins to see themselves as aware. A person who saves automatically begins to see themselves as consistent. A person who reflects on spending begins to see themselves as intentional. These identity shifts happen quietly. There is no announcement, no dramatic realization, just gradual internal change. And identity change matters because behavior aligned with identity requires less effort. When actions match self-perception, resistance disappears. Instead of forcing discipline, behavior feels natural. This is why daily systems succeed where motivation fails. Motivation depends on emotion. Identity depends on repetition. And repetition is sustainable. But understanding identity alone is not enough. The next step is learning how to apply psychological shifts that make financial behavior calmer, clearer, and more stable without relying on willpower. By now, something important should feel clearer. Financial stability is not created by dramatic effort. It is created by psychological alignment. When behavior matches how the brain naturally works, consistency becomes easier. When behavior fights psychology, even strong motivation eventually fades. The goal is not perfect discipline. The goal is reducing emotional friction between intention and action. Here are 5 practical psychological shifts that reshape financial behavior without relying on pressure or extreme restriction. One of the most damaging psychological patterns is linking self-worth directly to earnings. When income rises, confidence rises. When income falls, identity feels threatened. This creates emotional instability because income is influenced by many external factors: economic cycles, opportunities, timing, and luck. If identity depends on income, every financial fluctuation becomes personal. But psychologically healthy financial behavior begins when income becomes information, not evaluation. You are not your salary. You are not your current balance. Income reflects circumstances and skills at a moment in time, not personal value. When identity separates from income, decision-making improves. People become more willing to learn, adjust, and grow without emotional defensiveness. Calm thinking replaces self-judgment, and calm thinking produces better long-term choices. Most financial stress grows in avoidance. The unknown feels larger than reality. When people avoid looking at financial numbers, imagination fills the gap with worst-case scenarios. Daily awareness interrupts this pattern. Spend 60 seconds each morning observing 3 numbers: current account balance, total debt, long-term savings or investments. No analysis, no planning, no emotional reaction required. Just observation. Repeated exposure normalizes information. Numbers lose emotional charge. The brain stops associating money with threat. Over time, awareness increases cognitive salience. What is seen regularly becomes mentally important, and what becomes important naturally influences behavior without force. Awareness is often the first real step towards stability. Motivation is unreliable because it depends on mood, energy, and environment. Automation removes emotional negotiation. Small automatic actions work because they bypass internal debate. A tiny daily saving or scheduled transfer does not feel significant enough to trigger resistance. But psychologically, consistency builds trust between intention and behavior. Each repetition reinforces identity. I am someone who follows through. Over months and years, the psychological effect becomes more powerful than the financial amount itself. Stability grows not from intensity, but from predictability. The brain relaxes when outcomes feel predictable, and relaxed minds make better decisions. Many purchases are not responses to need. They are responses to emotion: stress, boredom, comparison, fatigue, loneliness. Emotional states narrow attention toward immediate relief. This is why impulsive spending often happens during evenings, stressful workdays, or after long periods of decision-making. A simple psychological tool changes this pattern. Delay. Not denial, just delay. Create a small pause between desire and action. Even a short waiting period allows emotional intensity to decrease. When emotional activation drops, rational evaluation returns naturally. Often, the desire disappears entirely. And when the decision still feels right after the pause, it becomes intentional rather than reactive. This preserves autonomy while reducing regret. Psychologists call this an implementation intention. Instead of deciding behavior in the moment, decisions are made in advance. Before sleeping, Spend a few minutes identifying tomorrow's key financial behaviors. For example, I will check my account after breakfast. I will review spending in the evening. I will avoid online shopping during work breaks. Pre-decided actions reduce decision fatigue. The brain prefers following plans over creating them repeatedly. Morning resistance decreases because the decision already exists. This small habit connects intention with execution, and over time, execution builds confidence. Many people attempt financial change through large monthly resets. Budgets begin strongly, then slowly fade. This happens because feedback arrives too late. Humans learn best when action and consequence remain close together. Daily systems create immediate feedback loops. Small mistakes are corrected early. Emotional reactions stay manageable. Behavior adjusts continuously instead of dramatically. The goal is not strict control, it is steady alignment. Alignment reduces stress more effectively than perfection ever could. Financial stability rarely arrives as a breakthrough moment. There is usually no single day when everything suddenly feels solved. Instead, change happens quietly. You begin checking numbers without hesitation. Small decisions feel clearer. Unexpected expenses feel manageable rather than threatening. Money stops feeling like an enemy. And slowly, almost invisibly, identity shifts. You stop trying to manage money occasionally. You become someone who manages money naturally. This transformation does not require extreme discipline. It grows from repeated small behaviors performed consistently enough that they stop feeling difficult. Behavior shapes identity. Identity sustains behavior. And over time, stability becomes normal rather than effortful. The future is rarely shaped by dramatic effort. It is shaped by ordinary actions repeated daily, often unnoticed. Tomorrow morning, you do not need a complex plan. Just look at your financial numbers for 60 seconds. No judgment, just awareness. Because consistency begins with visibility, and visibility begins with attention. Small actions may feel insignificant today, but over years, they quietly determine direction. And direction, repeated long enough, becomes destiny. If this video helped you understand the psychology behind money and behavior more clearly, consider subscribing to PS Guys. Each video is designed to help you think more calmly, decide more intentionally, and understand yourself on a deeper level.